Hi everybody, my name is Matt, Cryptic if you prefer, and I'm doing something different again because I like to experiment here. I like to do different stuff, and I wanted to try something that I don't think I've necessarily seen somebody do, but maybe I have. I mean, it's technically just a dev blog, but for a project. So what am I doing? If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I asked my Instagram followers if they were interested in seeing me do kind of like a dev blog style series on YouTube, kind of going through my entire process start to finish for a personal project. And instead of just doing a recap video, which honestly I can't stand editing those because they just, I don't know, there's something soul-sucking about it. Regardless, I wanted to do something that felt a little bit more like you were actually coming on the journey with me. So not only will you be able to watch me working on this project live, you'll be able to watch these videos and kind of see how I do things throughout the entire process. This is also very different for me because I don't usually share my personal projects until I'm like really ready to. So I'm really starting out fresh here, and I'm really saying, here's what I'm doing and follow along. So that brings us to the important part, is what am I doing? What is the project? So I finished a project last week. It was the Sitapati. If you haven't seen it, it's on my Instagram, it's on my ArtStation, it's all over the place. I finished that. I heavily enjoyed that process. I'm not even gonna lie. I really actually enjoyed working inside of ZBrush. It's an application that I have pushed and pulled and hated for a long time, but I finally feel like I grasped it. So I wanted to do something different. I wanted to take that up a notch. So I am a huge fan of like dark aesthetic stuff. And so I've always wanted to do my own rendition of Death, or the Grim Reaper, basically. So for this project, I'm going to be doing that, and just that. My concept here is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be doing sort of a old, decrepit, like almost dead, right? So like just like this creature that is just dead. But it has a purpose. So we're going to be going through that. This first video is going to be me kind of walking through how I set up my initial stages of like reference. And because this will be a series, I'm going to try to upload these every week so you guys can get kind of an idea on what it is I'm working on and what it is I'm doing. So I'll do sort of like updates as well as like sculpting sessions. The other thing that you can do is you can make sure, one, you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss one of these videos, and two, you can follow me on Twitch. I will be live streaming as well as YouTube. I live stream everywhere, so you can follow me on whatever platform you want, but I'll be live streaming on all of those platforms when I'm working on this project. So in theory, there should be no real gaps in this project as far as like watching the entire process unfold, whether it'll be a live stream or it'll be a video. So you should be able to see the entire process regardless of how you want to watch it. So with all of that out of the way, and kind of with what we're doing, I want to do one last personal plug, and that is, if you want to support this channel further, if you want to get your name in the end of the credits on each one of these videos, you can join on Patreon, or you can subscribe as a member on YouTube. Both of these options will currently get your name in the credits of my videos as a supporter of the channel. Soon I will be adding that to Twitch as well. I just have to figure out the whole export on that stuff. So if you want to support the channel, support what I do here, you can always subscribe for free, or you can join on Patreon or join as a member or a Twitch subscriber, however you want to do that. But now that that's all out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into setting this up and how I would go about finding my reference, because I figured this would be a great way to just start the video, kind of dive into this content easily, and it's a question I honestly get quite a bit, so let's go ahead and just start doing it. All right, so starting on this off, we're going to be using two very basic tools today. That's Google and PureRef. And if you don't know what PureRef is, it's an awesome way to kind of organize your thoughts and your images and all that stuff, and so that is what we're going to be doing today. I usually just search for the things that I have in mind, so I'll find kind of like an overarching concept and try to go from there and figure out what I'm doing next. So let's go ahead and do this. I already have PureRef pulled up. And funny story here, I actually already created this. But I accidentally didn't save it, so I'm now redoing it and in turn turning it into content. So enjoy, I guess. So what we're gonna do is gonna go ahead and open up Google. And so I know that I'm working on Death, right? So I'm gonna search Grim Reaper If I blur something out, it's because it's probably not safe for YouTube, so I'm sorry. This is kind of a weird subject because this can lead into kind of strange things for reference, so I may blur or cut some of these out just in case, but if you want access to this PureF, it'll be available on my Patreon, I guess. We'll put it up on the Patreon. But if you find that something's blurred or for whatever reason isn't showing up, that's probably why. All right, so looking at Grim Reapers, we know what they look like. I have a very specific idea for what I want, so really I'm more so looking for like the silhouette of this thing. I really like that actually. It's from Dungeons and Dragons, of course. So what I'll do is I'll just end up going in here and just copying the image, and so I kind of like this as like my overarching kind of like concept, so I'll paste my image in here. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and just do a note. So we'll do main reference. Okay. So it's always my goal to just kind of organize my thoughts here. And depending on how I want to do this, I think I'll leave this as like my main kind of overarching centerpiece. So the things that I'm looking for, right, is like I'm not doing your traditional like bone skeleton based Reaper. I'm doing very much kind of this like rotten zombified, like almost like extraterrestrial like skin type is what I'm thinking. So that very like translucent, just kind of gross skin. So I'm going to be looking at a lot of reference from like super skinny people or zombies or aliens, just some of that like anatomical reference. So what I'll do in here is I'll do skinny person reference, and we'll just see what we find here. And then right off the bat, so this is really nice actually because this shows kind of some of the musculature. This is Pablo Perdomo, Anatomy of a Thin Male Body. Let me just see if this is actually like, let's see. Oh, okay, so he actually has like a whole, interesting, all right. So what I'll do is I'm going to actually save this. I'm going to copy this link. And then I'm going to copy this. Actually, I'll copy this image first. So we'll go in here. We're going to scroll over. I'm going to add a new note. So we're going to do anatomy. Oh. Okay. And then paste. But all right, so we've got that. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this just in case I want this later. I probably will, especially because it's just free. We'll do a, can you add a link to this? No, you can't. So let's do a note. I'm just gonna Control V. So this is a good kind of thing to get into, is just to like put links underneath things that you find that you want to reference later, because that can be super helpful. So really I'm again just looking at the different sorts of like anatomy that I can work with here. Let's see. I remember this was one of the images I had. I really liked the kind of like the abdomen area because he's like really sucking his gut in. So copy image. And, you know, these are all just things for me to pull off of. I should also like put this out there too, like I am no expert at this, so this is just kind of my process and how I do this. I'm very new to the sculpting realm, and especially with this project being that this is going to be kind of a humanistic character that I've never done before, it's gonna be different. So trying to find reference that I think is gonna work for me. That's interesting. I kind of like that actually. I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna put that under here though, because that's not necessarily anatomy. So we'll just kind of scale that in. That's good. All right. Oops. Ooh, this is kind of cool. So stuff like this is always really cool because it kind of shows you how like skin's working and like how the skin is kind of like how it functions on somebody who's like skinny, who doesn't have a lot of fat. Just how like you can get those like folds and those creases and things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this one because that's a good reference. So copy image, paste. So let's keep going here. Let's do this. This is gonna be a weird search, but we're gonna search wet zombie. Some of the weird things that you end up searching on this stuff is like always kind of fun. What is that? That looks very AI and we're not using it. Oh, so this is good because this is from 28 years later. This is actually kind of awesome. So I'm going to copy this. Excuse you. I'm going to just paste it. So when it comes to stuff like this, like don't be afraid to use like whatever you need to just to give yourself the idea, because like in the end, like you're going to be making this your art piece, but we need reference for things like the musculature and everything like that, because like with a project like this, it's not going to follow your traditional sort of anatomy. It's going to be a very much like kind of like a like an aged body, like a very like just skeletal but still skinned. It's going to be a very like different kind of process there. So like I want to make sure I have as much reference as possible so I can do that. And thankfully Google's censoring a lot of this, so that's perfect for me. Let's see. Unfortunately, not a lot of good stuff here. That's kind of cool though. I kind of like this for skin texture. I'm going to copy that image. So this will be one of those things where like I go in here, I'm going to add, we'll add a new note down here. Skin reference. And I think a lot of people tend to overstress this. They're like, oh my God, like what if I don't gather enough reference? Well, you know, the reality is you can just always gather reference. You never have to stop. It doesn't really matter. But sometimes neat stuff like this will pop up, and that's really cool. So let's do, we're gonna search up a gray alien, because I know this is kind of the skin texture that I'm looking for. I absolutely hate these things, but I know this is going to be a really good ability, or this is going to give me really good like reference for like skin tone. I kind of like that. This is an asset that you can buy, I guess. So we're going to just copy this image here, you know, paste it down here for skin reference because I like the look of that. Not making an alien, but I do like this coloration. It kind of looks like he's got sunglasses, which is interesting. Let's see here. What else we got? What else we got? Kind of this like weird pinkish hue. It's going to be kind of interesting to figure out how to do this. Reptilian gray. Let's do this one. I'm just looking for different kind of concepts. So let's see. Paste. And there was a, let's see, there was okay, so right now we already have a good amount of anatomy reference, some kind of inspirational reference, and some skin reference. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go through this, and then I will show you guys kind of what the end result is and like how I found everything. But basically it's the same process, right? I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna Google everything, figure out what I'm doing here, and then move on from there. Okay, cool. So that is kind of what I have so far. This was just me spending about 20-30 minutes just gathering some reference. I broke this down into a couple of different things here. So you saw the process. So you saw the process for the anatomy, for the main reference, and for the skin reference. So basically what I did after that was I added in scythe reference and pose reference. There's a couple more elements that I want to add in here. I just haven't necessarily found the reference that I'm looking for yet. Again, if you want this file, it'll be up on my Patreon, but it'll be a good place to kind of start once it's complete and built out and put it up there. But this is kind of what I will start with. It doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be something crazy, especially for doing projects like this where I don't have a ton of experience in doing sculpting, especially sculpting with the human form. I know I'm going to add to this at some point. So this will be something that is very much kind of an ever-evolving piece. I have found over the years that like doing this stuff with hard surface modeling isn't actually as like important for myself as it is for the sculpting stuff. I find that's much more important and much more kind of like necessary to do. So this is actually a really important part of the process that I used to skip a lot, and I'm trying really hard to make sure I don't skip this anymore, because again, this is what's going to either make or break kind of my project. This is my initial planning and my initial kind of build of this thing. So I really want to make sure that I get this right at the beginning, and then I can add to it later if I need to. Okay, so from here, what I'm going to be doing is I will be blocking out the model. So the next video in this series, which will, I don't know, probably be up by the end of this week, who knows, will be me blocking this out. So I'm going to kind of start, I've decided with this project, I'm going to start with a base mesh, and I'm going to just kind of tear it apart and then just build it from the ground up, because as far as anatomy goes, I am not the most comfortable with it, so I want to make sure that I have at least a decent starting point and I can work through it and work with it and figure out where I'm either lacking or doing well. So I will be starting with a base mesh for this model. I'm not going to start from scratch like I did with the Citipati. But the next video is just going to be me basically blocking this thing out with the base mesh. So I'm going to kind of tear the body down and just like really make things as like skeletal as possible and thin, and then I'll just start building from there. But if you guys are excited for this series, make sure that if you made it to this point in the video, you have liked it, you've subbed if you're brand new. I hope you guys enjoy the future videos, because this is going to be something new for this channel. So instead of doing like a mass recap, I'm going to do a step-by-step, basically how I did this project. So I think it'll be kind of informative for you to see kind of how my mind works and how I do this stuff, because again, I'm not an expert at this. I'm not the greatest sculptor in the world, but I want to show people what it's like to actually work on this stuff, especially when you're diving into something new. When you have experience in other areas, but you're kind of opening yourself up to a new process, I think this will be really good for this. So I hope you enjoyed this. I know this is kind of a weirder video, a little bit kind of boring subject-wise, but I promise in the next videos we'll start going over the actual sculpting and working in ZBrush and doing all that stuff. I'm still continuing with all my hard surface stuff. In fact, I've got some more videos coming on that, as well as my regular Maya tutorials, so don't worry, I'm not stopping those. But this is a new way for me to kind of add a little bit of bulk to the channel and just try to reach new audiences. So hopefully this works. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. But that's all I've got for this video. I will see you all in the next one.